trying to get additional information. We should expect a briefing within the next hour or two after they get the scene, under control. And first and foremost, make sure that those injured are getting the appropriate medical attention.
Of course, and we're going to continue to work details. If you don't mind, Pierre, make whatever calls, texts, emails you can to get more information so we can continue to confirm what we're hearing right now. I want to bring in our contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett along with you too, Pierre, as we are looking at live pictures right now. Just to set the scene, if you're just tuning in, it's pretty remarkable that we are so up close to these pictures. This is literally 2 blocks away from where our bureau is here at ABC News. Our photographer, Chris Plater, happened to be here along with our Jay O'Brien. They were able to run down the block. So that's why we're getting these live pictures. Chris is there on the scene as this is an active situation. You can see the D.C. police responding. You see the number of National Guardsmen on the street because what happened, I actually got a text message from my nephew who was en route here to visit our news program today saying we see people fleeing, something's going on. It looks like a possible shooting. And now here we are with these live pictures, as you can see at Connecticut. And I think it's I Street there, not far from the Farragut West Metro Station where the shooting took place. You just heard our Pierre Thomas that the suspect is down. One National Guardsman has been injured. Chris, our photographer who's shooting these live pictures for right now, saw EMS working on at least 2 individuals. What he believed definitely was one of those National Guardsmen. We do not know the condition of any of the individuals who have been shot. We're still working that information. But Brad, I just want to bring you in as we continue to look at these live pictures. We know the ATF is responding to the shooting. We see D.C. police. We see EMS there on the scene. I mean, this would just be tragic after the President of the United States called for 2,400 National Guardsmen to walk the streets here of D.C., to walk this area, to make things safer when he was concerned about crime. And now this is exactly the thing that we were afraid of, and that was members of the National Guard being shot. Brad, tell me now, as a former FBI agent, what's going on with regard to the investigation and what's taking place at this point?
And so the real key is this a lone shooter? They're talking about someone being down. Is he or she the only person involved? You want to quickly ID them. You're going to want to review CCTV that probably captured, if not most, or perhaps all of this shooting to give you some insight to what you're dealing with. Is it a lone person? Fine. Then you've reduced the immediacy that there's someone else out there that either was involved in this shooting or moving on potentially to shoot somebody else. The unfortunate thing, Kara, about the National Guard is that, they're in a difficult position because they're really not law enforcement, but they're a target because they're in uniform. And typically when you see these types of shootings, it's because of what they represent to the shooter. They can go everything from mental health challenges to problems in the military, or they just don't like the National Guard in D.C. or any place else perhaps. That can be sorted out. That's not the important issue right now. The important issue is safety beyond the obvious safety of where this shooting occurred. And I suspect in pretty quick order with the ATF and probably FBI, I'll jump into this also, it'll help them figure out what they have.
Got it. And as we continue to follow this breaking news story, how did we find out about this? My nephew, Dave McElwain, who joins me here on set now, here visiting for the Thanksgiving holiday. He was trying to get to the Bureau. He texted me saying something's going on. There are people running down the street. He said he was not far from the Executive Building, which is right next to the White House, which is not far from where we are here at the Bureau. Dave, I know you came for family Thanksgiving dinner, but you also find yourself in the middle of breaking news here. And just tell me, as you were driving in to come watch the newscast, what did you see? What did you hear? Just give me all the details.
Yeah, so we were driving about 2 blocks away, just looking at Google Maps, trying to figure out where to go, and we heard people screaming. Looked like a couple families running out from one of the buildings, and then we noticed the armed, with their rifles out, uniformed security. I'm not sure exactly who they were. A couple of them coming out onto the street, trying to get traffic to move, yelling and pointing, and we just did a quick U-turn and got out of there as quickly as we could.
So now that we know it was actually an active shooting, I mean, you were blocks away from where this shooter was at Farragut Metro Center. So there's a lot of law enforcement in the area. There's D.C. police. There's Secret Service. I mean, we have so many different types of law enforcement in the area. Tell me what exactly you saw. They had their guns drawn and they were clearing everybody from the area?
Yeah, absolutely. They had them drawn, but pointing down, not actively pointing at somebody, but they looked like there was definitely an incident going on, and we just wanted to be out of there as quickly as possible so that they could do their job.
Yeah, they were in the ready position for sure. Dave, thank you so much. All right, Brad, I want to bring you back as we're looking at these live pictures. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is now putting out on X right here, please join me in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. So now we are getting reportable news from the Secretary Noem that indeed it was 2 National Guardsmen that were shot. So, Brad, we're finding out, obviously, some pretty heart-wrenching details here on Thanksgiving week as we see members of National Guardsmen here on the scene. It's an all-out investigation now. Talk to us about where folks go from here, from the FBI to the ATF to D.C. Police, even the National Guard.
So clearly the key is maybe less motive and more about safety, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. And so that's going to be the real focus. The other is obviously the idea that you would shoot somebody in uniform in the National Guard. Could that spread? Could that give other people ideas? It's going to cause, I believe, the National Guard to sort of regroup how they're deployed. They may well deploy in bigger groups if they're armed, or if some of them are armed.
This is an ABC News special report.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We're coming on the air with reports now of 2 National Guard members that have been shot in downtown Washington, D.C., not far from the White House. Both members were in uniform, police and ATF on the scene. A police official telling us that a suspect is down. President Trump deploying the National Guard in August, as you may remember, was part of his effort to crack down on violent crime. As we're seeing play out right now on the streets of D.C. Let's get right to our Jay O'Brien. He's there at the scene. Jay, set the scene for us. Tell us what you know. And we actually see the scene behind you where police are actively working.
Yeah, Kira, a chaotic and tragic scene here. As you can see, more law enforcement arriving. The scene seems to be congregated around the Farragut West Metro Station, there at the end of the block, just beyond that fire truck. We have seen National Guard in recent months stage at these metro stations as part of a larger public safety operation. And as you can see, we see a number of National Guardsmen who have also arrived here. In fact, our bureau is just a few blocks away. As we were running here to this scene to cover the story, we were running behind members of the National Guard who were sprinting here on their cell phones, trying to get a sense of what was going on. We saw one apparent victim, someone in National Guard fatigues, being worked on by EMS and other law enforcement. We saw at least one of them at the entrance of the metro station, and then we saw another of those loaded into an ambulance which sped off here with a police escort. Obviously, not much information coming out of this scene. Law enforcement now say they have it locked down, but chaotic here. Another thing we witnessed as we arrived is EMS sprinting to that metro station here. Now this scene has transitioned to be one of an investigation. We've seen federal agents arrive. We've seen tactical units with the Secret Service here, as well as DC Fire, and of course those fellow National Guardsmen who are here now watching and looking on as this tragic scene unfolds. Kira.
Okay, and I'm continuing to get in new details now, Jay. First of all, this is just heartbreaking. It's Thanksgiving week. This is exactly why the President of the United States put National Guards, men and women, on the streets, specifically in this area because of violent crime he wanted to see an end to. And now we are reporting that a suspect is down after shooting two members of the National Guard. They were here not far from our bureau, our ABC News bureau here in D.C. We're located at DeSales in Connecticut. This is 17th Street and I, if you know it, not far from the White House, only a couple of blocks. You can see all the agencies on the scene, from the ATF to D.C. Fire, rescue crews carrying out CPR, and obviously members of the National Guard and police. A statement coming from the White House now. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying the White House is aware and actively monitoring this tragic situation. The president has been briefed. Secretary Kristi Noem, DHS Secretary, saying, please join me in praying for the two National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. Let's get straight to our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, can you tell us anything about the conditions of those two members of the National Guard that have been shot?
Again, we're still awaiting information. Law enforcement officials wanted to first secure the scene, get the victims to medical treatment as soon as possible. Initially, D.C. police were giving guidance that at least one National Guardsman was shot. We've now heard from a second D.C. police official who said two were injured. That official also confirming that the suspect is in custody, with another D.C. police official telling me that the suspect was down. I don't know if that suspect was injured or how badly. Again, D.C. police are getting assistance from Secret Service, other federal agencies to secure the scene. And obviously, what I was told is that at 2:20 p.m., there was an active shooter incident at the entrance of that metro stop. Apparently, the National Guard was there. It's unclear if it was a robbery. It's unclear if they were targeted. Again, a lot of information officials are trying to glean to get specifics, but obviously the main priority was getting assistance to the victims who were injured. Crime in D.C. had been going down in recent months, but suffice it to say, gun violence in this country is chronic. And so even when there is improvement, there are always people, unfortunately, who have weapons and are willing to use them. This is a situation, obviously, because of the location near the White House. We're being told that the White House, for at least a period, was put on lockdown as they try to assess the situation. Again, bevy of law enforcement officials there. I've seen those National Guardsmen often on my walk to the metro. They were there, to support D.C. police. Again, they're not law enforcement officials, but they were definitely put in a position today where it was a very tragic circumstance.
Indeed, tragic circumstance just a day before Thanksgiving. And Pierre, just to reiterate, the president has been briefed. We have heard from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt that not only has the president been briefed, but also that the White House is on lockdown. Also, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem saying, please join me in praying for the two National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. And if you're just joining us right now, as you know, President Trump has been deploying National Guard troops in cities that he has said have needed the extra support because of crime, violent crime like what we have just seen this afternoon. We can tell you we are trying to confirm at this point whether that suspect is down or in custody. As you heard from our Pierre Thomas, we've been getting reports that either one of those scenarios could be the situation right now, but we can confirm that two members of the National Guard have been shot. National Guard members that were not far from the Farragut West Metro Station. They had been at Union Station, our main train station here in D.C., tourist areas like the mall, where a lot of people have been coming in for Thanksgiving vacation, as you know, and also the metro station. It just so happened that my nephew was here en route to the Bureau visiting for Thanksgiving. He texted me saying, I'm not far from you. We see people running. We see officers in the ready position, guns down, trying to move people away from the scene. And then the yellow tape started to go up. And now we know it's a breaking news situation. 2 members of the National Guard shot. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky also working his sources. Anything that you can tell us, Aaron, about the condition of those 2 members of the National Guard and also the suspect? Is he down? Is he in custody? Do we know?
At least one suspect is in custody, according to D.C. Metro Police, Kira, and the condition of the National Guardsmen who were shot was not immediately clear, although they were seen getting medical attention and immediately rushed to ambulances and presumably to the hospital. So the injuries do appear to be serious, even though we don't know the specific condition. With a suspect in custody and the scene seemingly secure, a focus will turn to whether these guardsmen were specifically targeted. If that's the case, it would fit with what we've been hearing from law enforcement officials for a number of months now, that some political flashpoints in the country, whether that's immigration policies by the administration, the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, even amid a tenuous ceasefire, those kinds of flashpoints have made people in uniform, be they military, law enforcement, government officials, people in uniform have increasingly been targets, and that is going to be one focus of the investigation going forward, Kira.
Okay. Aaron, stay with us as news develops. If you're just tuning in, once again, 2 members of the National Guard shot. We cannot confirm their condition, but our photographer there, Chris Plater, has been on the scene. He did see EMS working on at least 2 individuals that were down. As you heard from our Aaron Katersky, at least 1 suspect is in custody. There's a number of agencies on the scene. You have ATF, you have DC Fire, you have EMS, you have DC Police. And you see, as Chris is showing us the scene, this is about 2 blocks from the White House, 2 blocks from us in our ABC News Bureau here in D.C. This shooting happening around 2 o'clock Eastern Time. We will continue to bring in all the details, keeping our fingers crossed just one day before Thanksgiving that these members of the National Guard can survive the shooting that has taken place this afternoon. Our coverage will continue on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. I'll be back with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm Kira Phillips. Sorry to bring you this news on the day before Thanksgiving, but we're going to stay on the story with all the details, hopefully be able to update you on these 2 members of the National Guard. I'll see you over on ABC News Live right now. Hope you'll join me.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We continue our breaking news coverage now here on ABC News Live. We can tell you, sadly, that this afternoon that 2 members of the National Guard have been shot here in downtown Washington, D.C. It was an active shooter incident. We know at least 1 suspect has been taken into custody. It happened near the Farragut West Metro Station, not far from the White House and not far from where we are here in our bureau. We've been seeing a lot of members of the National Guard present on the scene. You'll remember that President Trump initiated his federal takeover. He put more than 2,400 members of the National Guard on the streets of D.C. to specifically, as he said, try to help with the violent crime here in downtown D.C. Declared that public safety emergency back in August, got those troops on the ground. And now our first situation where an active shooter has actually fired upon two members of the National Guard, two members that were trying to keep our streets safe during, by the way, one of the busiest holiday seasons for us, Thanksgiving week, where we have hundreds and hundreds of tourists coming into our city to see monuments, museums, and visit with family. Let's bring in our Jay O'Brien. He's still at the scene there in Washington, D.C. Jay, bring us up to date on anything that you may have.
Yeah, Kira, it is still chaotic here and still tragic. The main scene has been focused around the entrance to the metro station. In fact, you can see it much clearer now. Chris, if you can shoot between that pole and that fire truck, if you look in that entrance there, that is the entrance of the Farragut Metro Station. There it is. You see it now on your screen. That is where we have seen police congregate. Remember, it's in those metro stations, as we've been discussing, that National Guard have often been staged here in their public safety mission here in Washington, D.C. We do not know in particular where these two National Guardsmen that were wounded were staged, but we've seen this scene really focus on the metro station. And what our Chris Plater, who's actually right behind the camera right now, one of our photographers, saw as he walked up to this scene was two National Guardsmen who were being worked on and receiving medical attention right at the entrance of the metro station. What we've also seen here, Kira, is National Guard from across Washington, D.C., again, all deployed here as part of that public safety mission, sprint to this scene here and accompanied by EMS. We saw what appeared to be one individual wearing military fatigues loaded into an ambulance that sped off from here, and this scene has now transitioned into an urgent investigation to try to figure out what went wrong. We do know, of course, that police have a suspect in custody, and it's believed that that suspect is requiring medical attention at this hour. We do not know their status, and more importantly, we do not know the status of those two wounded National Guards members.
Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, who's been traveling with the president, joins me now. Selena, tell me exactly where you are.
Yeah, I'm currently here in West Palm Beach, where the president is during this Thanksgiving holiday, so he is not at the White House, Kira, though we are learning from a White House official that the White House is currently on lockdown. We've also received a statement from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and she says the following. She says, quote, "The White House is aware and actively monitoring the tragic situation. The president has been briefed." Now, Kira, earlier today, the president was out golfing, but he is currently on his way back to Mar-a-Lago right now, where he's going to remain through the weekend. And this comes as there are currently still more than 2,000 National Guard troops in D.C. The president had deployed them earlier this year as part of his broader crime crackdown. And we have seen crime in D.C. steadily dropping, yet this tragic situation happening in the very capital, where the president has been touting this major decrease in crime and touting the success of those National Guard troop deployments and the success of dropping crime rates.
All right, Selena, stay close as we hope to get more information. We know the president has been briefed. As you mentioned, he's not at the White House, but the White House is on lockdown. That's standard operating procedure. If anything like this ever happens this close to the White House, and the active shooter was only blocks away from the White House when this took place at the Farragut West Metro area, about 2 blocks from the White House and 2 blocks from us. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Kontursky joining me now as we look at live pictures of the White House, which is now on lockdown. Aaron, do we have any idea the conditions of these 2 members of the National Guard that have been shot, and anything else we may know about a suspect or suspects? We do know that one is in custody.
A suspect is in custody, Kira, and said to be in critical condition. The 2 National Guardsmen also said to be critically hurt, including one who may be gravely wounded. So the shooting quite serious on the streets of Washington, D.C., as you've been saying, not far from the White House. The circumstances of the shooting still have not been made clear. The authorities are canvassing area businesses. They're looking for any video that may depict what happened so they can understand perhaps the circumstances of what went on. but a suspect is in custody, believed to be in critical condition, and the 2 guardsmen are also believed to be critically wounded as a result, Kira.
All right, Aaron, stay close. Please work your sources. Also with me, actually, is my nephew, Dave McElwain. He was on the way here with the family to actually visit the Bureau, see what it's like to watch a network newscast. And here we go. A breaking news story just the day before Thanksgiving. He was actually working his way about 2.5 blocks from the Bureau here when he texted me saying, I don't know what's going on, but there are armed officers, guns down in the ready position, clearing people away from the scene, putting up yellow tape. Dave, I'm just going to bring you right in. And welcome to D.C. I'm glad that the family is here. I'm glad that you're safe. You were not far from the Bureau when this happened. When you texted me, tell me exactly what you saw and what you guys had to do.
Yeah, it was really surreal to see something like this in person. We heard people screaming. We saw people running really quickly from a building. We saw uniformed, military uniform personnel coming out onto the street, yelling and pointing and trying to get people to clear the area. We did a quick U-turn to get out of there and routed around another few blocks. Weren't really sure what was going on, but just really, really obvious that there was something serious happening.
Well, apparently this happened, and I'm going to probably have to check in, and maybe my producers will remember. I think it was about 2:20 that this happened, and that's exactly at the time where you were just blocks away from the Bureau here. I mean, it was going on in real time because people were still running, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was our ETA to the Bureau here was going to be about 2:22, so I think we were probably quite close to where that was happening.
Minutes away of where it happened. And so you saw, did it look like military personnel that they were the ones directing folks away?
Yeah, certainly one of them had exited one of the security booths with his rifle, so that certainly military uniform. I don't know enough to distinguish who's who in D.C. But,
of course, I know we have a lot of various military and law enforcement on the streets. Dave, thank you so much. Stay close if you don't mind. I want to bring in our Jay O'Brien, who's there on the scene. You have some other witnesses, I am told. Jay, I know our photographer, Chris Plater, Jay, was there on the scene getting pictures even of those National Guard members on the ground getting worked on by EMS. Let me know if we can talk to him. Tell me who you've been talking to. Who's with you, Jay?
So we've got a number of eyewitnesses here lined up for you. One of them is Chris. Kira, we're going to go to him in a moment. But first, I want to bring in Stacey Walters here, a Howard student who was in an Uber when you heard some of these shots. Howard alum. Yeah. You were in an Uber when you heard some of the shots. Is that right? Yeah. Walk us through. So you're in the car. You hear the shots. What happens?
I was in the Uber. I heard boom, boom twice. I was looking at my cell phone, and the Uber driver said, "Why are all these people running?" So then I looked out the window, and it was little children. They looked probably about 5 years old on both sides of the street running, and adults. And whoever was supervising the children said, "Go, go, run." Then I heard someone yell, "Help, help," in the direction of the shooting. But I didn't see who yelled help. I don't know if it was the individual who was shot or someone yelling for help for the individual. We're on 17th Street Northwest. So I knew I wanted to research later. So I asked the Uber driver, what's the cross street? But he didn't know. And I was just at lunch going to go to the dry cleaners. And then the guards, I don't know if they're guards, Secret Service, but their uniform definitely looked government level, said you have to turn around. You have to turn around. And that was around 2:15 p.m.
Stacey, compared to where we are now, right, using this as our place, where were you approximately when you heard these shots?
That's the thing. I never paid attention. We were turning on to 17th Street.
Okay.
Because that's why I even asked the driver.
So you were down the street, turning onto this street.
We were so close that the shooting had just happened in the road. They had just, they were still letting people through. But by the time they got to us, they said, you have to turn around.
When you saw those people running, what went through your mind?
The children. They were little children. And it's such a beautiful day. That's the first thing I thought about, who would do this? It's getting ready to be the holidays. And so many children, they just weren't on one side of the road. They were on both sides of the road, little children running.
When you heard those pops, as you describe, did you immediately think it was a shooting?
No, I'm originally from Connecticut. I only came to D.C. for Howard University. I'm from the suburbs. Like, I've never been so close to anything like this. I didn't even know there were gunshots. All I know, I heard boom, boom 2 times.
Stacey Walters, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Kira, if you will indulge me here, I'm also going to bring in Chris Plater, who's been behind the camera for all of this coverage here. It was Chris Plater who was walking back to work at our ABC bureau, which is just a few blocks away, who heard that gunfire, and then he saw what appears to be those National Guards members wounded lying there on the ground. I want to bring Chris in here as he steps around the camera. And Chris, you've been with us for the entire day. It was you who called this in to our bureau. What did you see at first? What did you hear?
Okay, so it's what I heard first. And what I heard were, like pop, pop, pop. It could have been a steel plate or something. There's a lot of construction and things going around. So I just thought that maybe it was some plates going on or something like that. But then boom, boom, boom. And so I'm starting to hear these big guns. I'm like, okay, this is something's going on. So people at first were a little shocked. It was like, is that construction? And so some people kind of jogged a little bit. And then when those big booms started happening, people started clearing out like, yo, this is a little bit serious. This is shooting. There's something bad going on here. So immediately I went forward to see what was going on. And as you see in the video, I see 2 National Guard members down. And people are working on them,
providing first aid.
Providing first aid. There was, some police officers that came a little later. It was kind of strange because it seemed like it took like 25 to 35 seconds for any police to respond. When you think about where we are, the White House, so close. And so that's when I was like, could it really be? But it really was. These National Guard members were down.
So, Chris, in relation to where we're standing now, we're across the street from the metro station. Can you describe where you saw the activity and what you saw where in relation to where we are here?
Okay, so where we are right now, I came up and crossed the street.
So you were you were a block away on the other side of the street.
I was right here at the Metro stop. Yeah. I went over there to see what was going on, and that's where you see the video. I began videotaping, and they at some point got to clear us out and move us back here on this corner here. Mm-hmm. And so then I continued shooting and waiting, and that's when the police were responding and everything. So it was just all here, just a lot of people just running, the opposite way, through the park and past me. And there was some people that were, one person said something like, man, the guy went up there and started shooting at the National Guard. I didn't get to talk to him. I didn't get to, know who he was. But it sounded like he suggested that somebody went up and started shooting at the National Guard.
So, Chris, just to walk back a second here, one of the things you saw was very graphic, and we have to describe it with care here, but you did see, and you videotaped, one of or both of those National Guardsmen having first aid provided onto them lying on the street. Is that correct?
Yeah, one National Guard was lying on his side. They were rendering aid to him. He wasn't moving, but he was on his side. And then I looked at the other National Guard member that was down, and I saw compressions going on. There was a lot of people around there, so I don't think it was the person that done the shooting. And all I could tell you is that I identified 2 National Guard members that were being worked on. Eventually, the one National Guard that was on his side, he got to move a little bit while he was on his side, and they were still, working with him. But the other National Guard member, I just saw compression going on with him in the chest area, and that's all I can tell you.
Chris Plater, my dear friend who's been behind the camera with me over the course of the day, thank you, sir. And Kira, if you want to just stay with us for 1 second, because Chris is now going to go back to the other side of the camera and just show you one thing that we have not seen yet before, which is the full vantage point of this scene here. As Chris and I were talking, you probably saw the fire truck that was blocking the entrance to the metro station drove away, so you can get a sense of exactly the scene that Chris was describing. It's difficult to make out where he was, but he was on the right in front of that metro stop there. That's that open door that kind of looks like a garage door. You see it there. Chris was standing there watching them perform CPR onto one of the wounded guards. Guardsmen, and then he was moved to the other side of the street, had a vantage point of the scene there, again, chaotic. And now, as we've been saying over the course of the afternoon, Kira, it's now transitioning from the immediate aftermath of this shooting, where they were rendering first aid, they were loading, as we witnessed, some of these Guardsmen into ambulances and speeding off. And now this investigation is well underway, with D.C. police closing this intersection. And we saw, as I was talking to Chris, FBI agents and ATF agents walking toward that crime scene now, Kira.
All right, Jay. It's incredible, the live pictures and the details that you are bringing us. Thank you so much to Chris. It looks like there's some officers behind you that might be able to give you some information. We're going to stay close with you. But now, apparently, the President of the United States has put a statement out on Truth Social saying, without a doubt, whoever did this is going to pay a very steep price. Let's get to the White House now, and our White House correspondent, Karen Travers. What more is the president saying as the White House remains on lockdown and the president has now been briefed and he's putting a statement out on Truth Social as he remains at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, Kira, the president got back to Mar-a-Lago about 15 minutes ago, and he posted this on social media. I'm just going to read it directly to you. He writes, "The animal that shot the two National Guardmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, and the president says will pay a steep price." He goes on to say, "God bless our National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people." So that's a detail, I think, Kira, that we did not know, that the wounded were taken to two different hospitals, the president putting that in the Truth Social post. The president, of course, ordered this National Guard deployment back in August, Kira, to try and get a hold of what he said was rampant crime here in the nation's capital. And Kira, the president talks about it quite frequently in his speeches, saying that this has been a success and that he wants to see this continue. We know he's talked about doing this in other cities and has tried to do this in other cities. Even just yesterday at the annual turkey pardon in the White House Rose Garden, the president was talking about D.C. crime and what he has done here. Kira, he said that this was one of our most unsafe places anywhere in the United States, and it is now considered a totally safe city. I think we should also note, and others have probably said, that this area near the White House is relatively a safe area down there. Lots of commuters going in and out of that metro station, tourists also coming near the White House to get a glimpse of that area, and also the monuments that are just a couple blocks away. But obviously this has been a very tragic situation that happened there today, just a couple blocks away from the White House.
Karen, thank you so much. Let us know if we hear anything more from the president. Again, the president saying the animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. That coming from the president via Truth Social as he is in Mar-a-Lago right now for the Thanksgiving holiday. The White House still remains on lockdown, but here's what we can tell you. D.C. police saying one suspect in custody. A law enforcement source telling us also that they're the two injured Guard members. One is a female, one is a male. And just like the president just said, both in critical condition. And now we're learning from the governor of West Virginia, both of those members of the National Guard that have been shot are from West Virginia. The male member of the National Guard believed to be the suspect believed to be a male, also in critical condition. Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying they are actively monitoring this tragic situation. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem saying, please join me in praying for these two National Guardsmen who were just shot in Washington, D.C. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky. Aaron, what more can you tell us about the conditions, possibly, of these two members of the National Guard, one female, one male, we are told, both from West Virginia? And also the suspect, do we believe it's only one? Could there be more?
Well, certainly the authorities are now trying to figure out if there are additional suspects that they need to track down, or whether it's just the one that is now in custody and critically wounded, we're told. And President Trump's post a moment ago also confirms the two members of the National Guard are also critically injured, and one maybe gravely so. So medical attention was immediately rendered to those members of the National Guard and, frankly, the suspect as the individual was taken into custody. What authorities are working to determine now through video canvassing, eyewitness interviews, is to understand the circumstances of what happened. Were these guardsmen targeted? Was this a random street crime? The authorities have not yet said. If this was some kind of a targeted attack on members of the National Guard, we know law enforcement officials have been concerned in recent months about personnel in uniform, be that military or law enforcement, because they say all sorts of political flashpoints in the country may make those kinds of individuals in uniform increasingly potential targets. So that will be a focus of the investigation going forward. Now the scene there in D.C. Has been secured, Kira.
Aaron, thank you. Let's bring in our contributor and former FBI agent, Brad Garrett. So clearly a lot is going to go into this investigation, Brad. We know the ATF, D.C. police, the military, all involved in this investigation now. I mean, they've got the dogs out, of course, checking the scene to see if there's anything else that could have been left behind. What else do you think is happening at this hour as the investigation is now knee-deep?
So one of the key components is after they've ID'd this alleged one shooter, maybe there's more, we just don't know the answer, is who is he? Is he just a lone actor, which if you had me to guess, statistically that's what he is, but he may not be. Is he connected to any other groups that have some sort of hate issue with the military or people in uniform, or it might be more specific? Because always the biggest concern is, could this generate some sort of copycat? And so, as you've already heard, NYPD apparently is checking on the National Guard in or around New York and probably re-coordinating how they're actually together. And maybe have more police presence in the areas where they are concentrated. You know, these things are very difficult to defense against, Kara. I mean, if some guy's got an agenda, just like people have agendas to go into schools or just they just hate in general and they go up and harm somebody, how do you defense against that, obviously, if you're in public, unless you know about it in advance? So we'll see, but sadly the National Guard are a target just because of what they represent, not as individuals, but in uniform, protecting the country, in this case, protecting D.C. the best they can. And so I think that's going to be one of the key factors is this contained, or are there other elements to it? But, you know, obviously you're collecting information. As you mentioned, the dogs are out. And what do they have forensically? I assume they have the shooter's weapons. It'll be interesting to see who shot the shooter. Did law enforcement or did the National Guard, were these National Guard members armed? Did they shoot the shooter? That will play out probably on video. Jay mentioned it earlier. I'll be surprised if some of it, if not all of it, were captured on video.
Right. Yeah, we have a lot of cameras in the area. You bring up a good point, Brad. I mean, this happened right by the Farragut West Metro, and there are cameras up there. I'm sure law enforcement is going through all of that right now. Let's get straight now to senior White House correspondent Selena Wang. She's actually traveling with the president. As we know, the White House is on lockdown because this situation, this shooting happened so close to the White House, that standing operating procedure. But the president is in Mar-a-Lago for the Thanksgiving vacation, which is why you are there. He has been briefed. Also, he is out with a statement on Truth Social. So bring us up to date, Selena. What else are you learning?
Yeah, Kira, that's right. That happened just blocks away from the White House. So no surprise the White House is on lockdown. But the president is here in West Palm Beach through the weekend. He was out golfing earlier, but he is now back at his Mar-a-Lago resort. He has been briefed. He is monitoring the situation. And the president's also sharing some new details about the case. He was posting on Truth Social just moments ago saying that the person who shot the two National Guardsmen is also severely wounded, and said, quote, but regardless, will pay a very steep price. We've also heard from Attorney General Pam Bondi as well as FBI Director Kash Patel. He says the FBI is currently actively involved investigating the situation. And Kira, this comes as the president has been consistently touting the success of his deployment of National Guard troops and bringing down crime rates in D.C. We're talking about an area where this happened, Kira, that's very safe, relatively safe, very close to our bureau as well. You know, we are always commuting there. There's a lot of office workers, government workers, federal workers. It is tragic. It is shocking. The president continuing to monitor the situation as he is out here in West Palm Beach. And there are still currently, Kira, more than 2,000 National Guards members who are currently deployed in Washington, D.C.
That's right. Selena Wang, thank you so much. And just to bring you up to date, we are following the shooting of 2 members of the National Guard on the streets of Washington, D.C. It happened just about 2.5 blocks here from our bureau at ABC News, 2.5 blocks from the White House. D.C. police saying 1 suspect is in custody. Also, those 2 members of the National Guard from West Virginia, 1 female, 1 male, both in critical condition. Also, the suspect in custody, a male also believed to be in critical condition. The White House on lockdown, the president now in Mar-a-Lago for the Thanksgiving vacation, saying on Truth Social, the animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen are both critically wounded, now in 2 separate hospitals. Also severely wounded is the suspect, but regardless, he will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of the military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the Office of the Presidency, am with you. From Secretary Kristi Noem, DHS Secretary, please join me in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. She released that not long after the shooting, about 2:20 Eastern Time. Also, we heard from White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt saying that the White House is aware and monitoring this tragic situation. We also are hearing that the FBI is on the scene. That's according to FBI Director Kash Patel. So you've got FBI, ATF, D.C. Police, D.C. Fire, Secret Service, basically every form of law enforcement, including members of the National Guard and military here on the scene as you're looking at these live pictures in downtown D.C. where this shooting took place. Our photographer, Chris Plater, was actually out on assignment not far from here. He heard the shots ring out. He thought it was possibly construction and then realized what was going down, seeing people fleeing and hearing the pop, 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 and knew this was not construction. It was clearly a shooting. And that's when we found out 2 members of the National Guard were down. Chris ran over on the scene, started shooting video, saw EMS working on those 2 members of the National Guard. Also en route to the Bureau was my nephew, Dave McElwain, here visiting with our family for Thanksgiving. He was coming to watch the news program, be here in studio, see what it's like. He texted me around 2:20, which was the actual time of the shooting, saying, "Not sure we can get to you. Something's going on. Military is on the streets, guns down in ready position, directing everybody away from the scene. We're going to work our way around and hopefully get to you." Well, it turns out my nephew actually was just moments away from witnessing that shooting that took place from where he had to turn off to get to the Bureau. Dave, I just want to bring you in on this. I know this is not exactly the Thanksgiving vacation you were thinking you were going to get, but we appreciate the fact that you let us know that this was going on while I was on the air. Tell me what you saw and just everything that you witnessed. Please tell us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were driving and we heard screams. We saw people running really quickly away from one of the buildings, and we saw 2 military uniformed personnel out on the street with their rifles drawn, trying to get people to move. And it was just really clear from how quickly they were moving that something wasn't right. And, you know, we pulled a U-turn as quickly as we could and just got out of that area. And
I'm so grateful that you had not arrived to that scene a moment sooner. Dave, stay with me. We are going to take it now to the Vice President of the United States. J.D. Vance is actually in Kentucky at Fort Campbell. He is going to step up to the mic and speak now. He's also been briefed. He was actually actually there serving Thanksgiving dinner with the troops. Kid Rock also with him and was performing. So now we're hoping to hear what the president has to say about those members of the National Guard that have been shot. Let's go ahead and listen to J.D. Vance, Vice President at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
I want to say first, before we get started, on a somber note, we had, and some of you may have seen this on your phones or on social media, but apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out. But what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the business of the Army and about what you're doing and about why it's important to the United States of America and why we are proud of you. Every single one of our soldiers here in Fort Campbell.
Now we are hearing not only from the Vice President of the United States there at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. He was actually there feeding Thanksgiving dinner to the troops. Kid Rock with him performing a morale trip during Thanksgiving. He just got word of the shooting that took place here not far from the White House. Two members of the National Guard have been shot. We are maintaining critical condition right now on the condition of both that male and female member of the National Guard. But we've now heard directly from the Vice President, and then the President of the United States did put out a statement on Truth Social. The President saying the animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded. But regardless, he will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. Also getting a statement from the governor of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey, who confirmed that those two guardsmen indeed are from West Virginia, one female, one male. The governor saying, Denise and I are devastated by the news that two members of the West Virginia National Guard were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C. We are in direct contact with our Guard and other officials and are working to obtain the most accurate information as quickly as possible. And just to bring you up to date, again, D.C. police saying one suspect is in custody. We have two members of the National Guard. Our photographer, Chris Plater, was actually not far from the scene when they got shot, saw EMS working on both of them. We are told they are in critical condition. A suspect, believed to be a male, also in critical condition. The White House remains on lockdown. The president remains at Mar-a-Lago, and that's where we find our senior White House correspondent Selena Wang. She is traveling with the president. Selena, are we hearing anything more from the president?
Well, we know the president has returned from golfing, Kira. He is back at his Mar-a-Lago resort. He has been briefed on the situation. You just read that post on Truth Social from the president talking about how the, quote, animal who shot the National Guardsmen is also severely wounded, saying that that person would pay a steep price. We also heard remarks on camera from the vice president, who is dressing troops at Fort Campbell ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. And he said there's still a lot we don't know. He said, quote, there's still a lot we haven't figured out. He said they still don't know the motive, but what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty just one day before Thanksgiving, Kira. And the White House, we know, is also on lockdown, considering this happened just blocks away from the White House, blocks away from where you currently are sitting in our D.C. bureau. This is an area that is considered very safe. The president, back in August, he had deployed more than 2,000 National Guard troops to D.C., and they still remain there, more than 2,000 National Guardsmen. And many of them have been concentrated around the downtown area. That's where a lot of them are, around that metro station, near our office, near the bureau, near the White House. And the president, for his part, has been consistently touting the success of this deployment in bringing down crime rates in Washington, D.C. The president now contending with this tragedy. He's continuing to monitor the situation from here in West Palm Beach.
All right. And Selena, we've been covering this story since August. And there was a lot of controversy at first when the president announced this federal takeover and put around 2,000 members of the National Guard on the streets of D.C. Okay, we are getting some sad news right now, Selena. Apparently, the governor of West Virginia is saying that those 2 members of the National Guard that were shot have died. We're getting this from the governor now. It is with great sorrow that we can confirm both members of the West Virginia National Guard who were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C. have passed away from their injuries. These brave West Virginians lost their lives in the service of their country. We are in ongoing contact with federal officials as the investigation continues. Our entire state grieves with their families, their loved ones, and the Guard community. West Virginia will never forget their service or their sacrifice, and we will demand full accountability for this horrific act. Can you print that for me, please, Diana? We now pause for an ABC Network special report. Please join us for our breaking news coverage. Yes, I got you.
This is an ABC News special report.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We are coming back on the air because the White House now says that those 2 National Guard members that were shot here in Washington, D.C. have died. The shooting happening just a short time ago, about a block from the White House and also not far from us here at the ABC News Bureau. Those Guard members from West Virginia, they were deployed by President Trump. It was part of his effort to crack down on violent crime in the city. Police saying the suspect was shot and wounded. That suspect now under arrest. President Trump responding as well, praising the National Guard and saying that that suspect, quote, will pay a very steep price. Let's get straight to our Jay O'Brien. He has been on the scene. All right, we'll get to Jay in just a second. First, our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. And Aaron, the governor of West Virginia, just moments ago confirming to us that sadly, a day before Thanksgiving, these 2 members of the National Guard that have been shot on the streets of D.C. are now dead.
The West Virginia governor, in a post on social media, writing, Kira, that it is with great sorrow that we can confirm both members of the West Virginia National Guard who were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C., have passed away from their injuries. The governor's statement does not identify those Guards members, but says these brave West Virginians lost their lives in the service of their country, and adds, we are in ongoing contact with federal officials as the investigation continues. But the governor says all of West Virginia grieves with the families, their loved ones, and the Guard community. West Virginia will never forget their service or their sacrifice. And the governor ends his statement, Kira, by saying we will demand full accountability for this horrific act. The authorities are still piecing together the circumstances of what led to the shooting of these 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard. A suspect, and it is believed there is just one suspect now, has been taken into custody. It's possible that the Guardsmen were able to return fire after they were shot and struck the Guardsman, who is now said to be in critical condition at the hospital. Kira.
All right, Aaron, stay close. I want to take it now to our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, these National Guard members were put on the streets of D.C. By the president to fight crime. It was controversial at the very beginning. Even the mayor was not comfortable with what was happening, but then eventually she did get on board, and the response was positive. Those seeing the members of the National Guard at our train station, Union Station, at the metro stations, we were coming to and from work, at tourist sites near the Smithsonian, museums, the mall, other places, people were getting comfortable seeing members of the National Guard on our streets. Now, sadly, 2 lives are lost trying to prevent the kind of crime that took their lives.
Well, in speaking to D.C. police who are coordinating all of this investigation, we had some guidance that these injuries were critical. We also had some guidance that they were likely fatal. The governor has now confirmed that information, that both the National Guardsmen are from West Virginia. The guidance that we have from sources, and they're still interviewing witnesses to piece together the most specific timeline and protocol that they can. But about 2:20, those National Guardsmen encountered a suspect who was armed. There was an exchange of gunfire. Both National Guardsmen were injured. The suspect was, we believe, according to sources, injured as well, and has been taken into custody. We should be getting information about that suspect's name and what the specific charges will be. The irony here is that particular metro stop is not one known for a great deal of crime. It is very much near the White House. As you say, it is near our Washington Bureau of ABC News. I had encountered the National Guardsmen often in going to lunch and also using that particular metro stop. This is just tragic on all levels. And even though crime has been going down in the city in general, even before the National Guardsmen were deployed, the fact remains in this country we have chronic gun violence with a lot of people that have weapons and are willing to use them. D.C. police are always at the ready to deal with it. But again, that particular area, which is so near the White House where there's lots of activity, is not known as a high crime zone. But suffice it to say, now you have all of government, from ATF, FBI, the FBI director has responded, the Attorney General has responded. They all know that this use of National Guard to help with crime prevention and control in the city was something that was a huge priority to the White House. It is something that has been playing out around the country. And to have this happen obviously has caused a great deal of concern among law enforcement. As our reporting thus far is that there were initial concerns about a possible other suspect involved. Right now, they have one suspect in custody. The belief is that they have the person, at least who fired the weapons, the gun at the National Guardsmen. And again, tragically, the information released by the governor now confirmed those National Guardsmen are dead.
Heart-wrenching. Pierre, thank you. Let's get straight to our Jay O'Brien, who's there at the scene. Jay was actually our photographer, Chris Plater, who was out in the area on a shoot and heard those gunshots immediately. You met up with him there on the scene. Chris even seeing EMS working on those 2 members of the National Guard, desperately trying to save their lives. And now we have the heart-wrenching news that just a day before Thanksgiving, these 2 brave members of the National Guard from West Virginia have sadly passed away. Take us back to when you arrived there on the scene, what you saw, what you heard, what Chris was able to capture on video, and now we're receiving the devastating news from the West Virginian governor that those 2 members of the National Guard have passed away.
Yeah, Kira, and a dark cloud has really fallen over this scene here, right outside the White House, just about a block away. I want to show you exactly the scene that we've witnessed now. We've been pushed back a little bit since last we spoke, but you can see the massive federal law enforcement presence there as investigators across the federal government and local law enforcement continue to go through this scene. And it's tough to see. I'm going to have Chris, our photographer, who, as you said, was an eyewitness to all of this, pan as left as he can. It's difficult to make out, but over here on my left are members of the National Guard. who have been here for the entirety of the afternoon, for just hours. You can't see them, but they're standing there. I can tell you when we first arrived on this scene and news began to ripple outwards that there were 2 members of the National Guard who were wounded, those guardsmen there who have been standing here guarding this scene became emotional. And now, as this news breaks of those 2 guardsmen having lost their lives, there is again a feeling of tragedy here. Chris Plater, our cameraman, who's on the other side of the lens of this camera right now, ran to this scene because he said he heard repeated gunshots. And when he arrived on the scene, he saw one of those guardsmen down, receiving medical attention. We saw compressions. He says he saw compressions being done on one. The other was receiving another kind of medical attention. When I ultimately got to this scene, right as I ran up, I saw one of those guardsmen being loaded into an ambulance, and that ambulance sped off. And there was a sense of a chaos here. EMS were sprinting here. I was running to this scene behind at least 3 other guardsmen who were sprinting here as well on their cell phones, trying to get a sense of what has happened. And now, of course, this news, this chaotic scene turning to tragedy and also turning to an ongoing investigation here as this scene continues to be processed to try to figure out exactly what transpired here.
Yeah, but what transpired is a devastating and sad situation. Just a day before Thanksgiving, 2 members of our National Guard shot and killed here on the streets of D.C., just a couple blocks away from our ABC News Bureau, just a couple blocks away from the White House. We can tell you they are from West Virginia, 1 male, 1 female, as you heard our Jay O'Brien say right there. He was on the scene with our photographer, Chris Plater, who saw EMS desperately trying to save their lives, working on them there at the scene at the Farragut West Metro Center, where more than likely they were patrolling, because that's what our members of the National Guard have been doing ever since the president put them on the streets of D.C. Metro stations, Union Station, our main train station, all our tourist destinations here in Washington, D.C. Now, sadly, 2 members of our National Guard have passed away after a suspect remains in custody after that suspect shot both of them on the streets of D.C. We're going to return you now to your regular programming. For some of you, that's your local news, but our coverage will continue on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. A complete wrap-up on World News Tonight. I'm Kira Phillips. Glad you could be with us, but I will see you back over on the channel on ABC News Live if you want to stream with me.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Breaking coverage here on ABC News Live. I'm Kira Phillips. If you are just tuning in, we are coming back on the air with the sad news that those 2 members of the National Guard that were shot here on the streets of D.C. have now passed away. That word coming from the West Virginia governor, confirming to us that 1 male and 1 female serving in the National Guard, standing by at the Farragut West Metro Center, walking around that area in D.C., not far from the White House, doing their jobs, a suspect shooting them. They went down. They have now passed away. The president has been briefed. He has put out a statement on Truth Social, making it very clear that that suspect will pay a very steep price. Let's bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, are you learning anything more about that suspect? We initially heard he was in critical condition. Do we know if he is the only suspect? And are we, by chance, learning the names of the 2 brave members of the National Guard that we have now lost?
At this point, Kira, it's believed that the suspect, who is in custody and said to be critically hurt, is the only suspect that the D.C. Metro Police has thus far mentioned. And it's still not clear why that suspect opened fire on these two members of the National Guard. The governor of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey, said on social media, "It is with great sorrow that we can confirm both members of the West Virginia National Guard who were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C., have passed away from their injuries." The governor calling the two members of the Guard brave West Virginians who lost their lives in service of their country. Right now, the governor says the state is in ongoing contact with federal officials about the investigation, and he says the entire state is paying tribute not only to their service and sacrifice, but also demanding full accountability for what the governor calls this horrific act that happened in the middle of the day outside the metro station, not far from the White House. The governor says those two members of the National Guard shot and killed. It appears they were able to return fire and critically wound the suspect, who was also taken to the hospital, now in critical condition. The governor's statement, though, Kira, did not identify the members of the National Guard who were killed today in Washington, D.C. He said the announcements and notifications to their families are ongoing.
All right, stay close, Aaron. I want to take it now to White House correspondent Karen Travers. Initially, before we got word of these two members of the National Guard passing away, the president had put out a Truth Social saying Okay, we lost Karen at the White House. We'll try to bring her back. Brad Garrett, former FBI, I'm going to bring you back in. Now that we know that these two National Guardsmen have lost their lives, we do not know a motive yet. We don't know anything about this suspect. We can only confirm that he is also in critical condition. The president making very clear in Truth Social he will pay a very steep price. But a lot of moving parts here, because there could be others that were involved in this shooting. It could be this one suspect. We don't know, but we do know a lot of agencies on the scene now. FBI, National Guard, D.C. Police, D.C. Fire, just to name a few of the agencies. So kind of tell us where things go from here as we continue to monitor these live pictures of this scene, Brad, where the shooting took place.
So the key, obviously, is a command post in or near this shooting, where you'll have the D.C. Police and obviously these other agencies, because you want to basically get intelligence as quickly as you can. It's going to come to you maybe from various different directions. For example, I'm sure they've ID'd the shooter at this point. Where is he from? Is he a local person? Did he travel here from some other place? And, you know, what's his deal? What's his background? What does he say on social media, if there's anything relevant there? So they've probably already conducted interviews to pull as much information as possible to do what I would call a profile or an assessment of him. Is he a lone actor? Was he targeting these two people personally? Probably not. He targeted whatever they represent in his world, in his reality. And just the sheer fact that he just walked up, I'm going to guess at fairly close range, shoots both of them, and then apparently they shoot him. Is he in fact connected to groups, associations, etc.? Are there other potential shootings planned? You know, I'm going to guess here. My guess is that wouldn't be, that's just too direct. Could it be that this could generate copycats? Because we clearly have the National Guard in a number of cities. Sadly, the answer to that is possibly. And so they're going to have to take a look at that. But pulling information together as quickly as you can, disseminating it, and keeping everybody informed as to what's going on is part of the moving parts. You're right, it's like spokes on a wheel. You have the D.C. Police doing things, the FBI, the ATF, even the National Guard doing information and pulling intel in and feeding it to this command post. So my guess is, in fairly short order, you and I may not know, but certainly law enforcement may well know what they have here.
Well, we now have another bit of breaking news, Brad, and apparently the governor of West Virginia may have gotten the information incorrect. It is possible that these members of the National Guard are actually still with us. Here's what Governor Patrick Morrisey is putting out now. We are now receiving conflicting reports about the condition of our 2 Guard members and will provide additional updates once we receive more complete information. Our prayers are with these brave service members, their families, and the entire Guard community. Wow, what a day this has been. Here's what I can tell you, what we can confirm, and that is because our photographer was there on the scene and he captured everything on video, that 2 members of the National Guard were shot. They are from West Virginia. One's a male, one's a female. They were in critical condition. We heard that from the president as well. Then the governor of West Virginia came out and said we lost them, that they had passed away, that they were shot dead by a suspect. Now the governor walking back that tweet that he put out, saying they are receiving conflicting reports about the condition of these 2 Guard members and will provide additional updates once we receive more complete information. I think all of us right now are holding out hope that those 2 members of the National Guard are still alive and still with us. We're working every detail on this story for you right now. We will have continuing updates right here on ABC News Live throughout the day. So glad you've been able to join us. I'm Kira Phillips. We do have more news after the break.
All across America.
Good morning. Hello.
Wherever we are.
Welcome. It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
Hi. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we've both never been. Growing up doesn't mean good morning. How are you?
At the start of the day, letting us into your home, putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together.
Happy birthday.
Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
There was the doctor, the loving husband, the incredible stepfather, and then there's this monster. There was a bombshell. Someone found a hidden camera in the bathroom. 3,000 videos, 1,400 photos. This betrayal was terrifying.
He wanted to kill my son. Once I tell the police what I have to say, he'll never get out.
Betrayal Under His Eye. Only on Hulu. America's #1 news, ABC News, now streaming 24/7 on Disney+.
Tonight, with tens of millions taking to the road and skies this Thanksgiving, know what to expect and where the problems might be as severe storms hit with a 1-2 punch. We're tracking it all. World News Tonight with David Muir is the most watched newscast in America.
Flash, 100-yard dash. Need to get across town, ignore the laws.
No problem.
Zootopia 2 is an absolute blast.
It is the vibe.
And just as fun as the original.
Pops and Wild. We are the dream team. Sorry, Paul.
It's a hilarious feel-good family adventure.
Toot toot.
An outstanding sequel that's well worth the wait. Disney Zootopia 2. Rated PG. Now playing only in theaters.
Tuesday night.
This is What Would You Do? The Holiday Special.
During the holidays, there's pressure on single people. If you saw a woman being pressured to couple up, what would you do?
You're the only one that's not with somebody. You're kind of turning into a loser, to be honest.
You have no right to be talking to your friend like that.
And what would you do if you saw a mom in need?
This one's declined.
Trying to buy a Christmas gift.
It's Christmas.
What would you do? The Holiday Edition.
Tuesday night on ABC.
Reporting from the fires in Ventura County, California, I'm Mola Lengi. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
I'm Elizabeth Schulze in Washington. Breaking news this hour on ABC News Live. Multiple officials
say that 2 members of the National Guard from West Virginia were shot this afternoon in downtown Washington, D.C., just blocks away from the White House. The Metropolitan Police Department says the scene has been secured. 1 suspect is in custody. We have team coverage following this breaking news. We have ABC News correspondent Jay O'Brien, who is on the scene, alongside ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Richard Flankel, Selena Wang from the White House, and ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky, all of us following these rapid developments as they come in. Jay, I'm going to go to you first. You are there on the scene, moments there after this scene unfolded. Just talk to us about what we know right now and what we know about these victims.
Well, at this hour, Elizabeth, we continue to see law enforcement processing this scene, and we're getting perhaps our best look yet at this very active crime scene. I just want to show it to you very quickly. You can see it from this vantage point a little bit. There's a wide open door there. It kind of looks like a half open garage door. That is the entrance to the Farragut West Metro Station. It's our understanding that this investigation is concentrating on that point because those 2 National Guardsmen were in and around that metro station. And the first person to actually arrive here on this scene is on the other end of this camera right now operating it. It's our Chris Plater, our photojournalist, who heard those gunshots, he tells me, and sprinted up here to see what was going on. He wasn't even sure there was shooting or construction or something of that nature. And as he arrived here, he saw 2 National Guard troops, 2 National Guardsmen laying there on the sidewalk as those around, some law enforcement and then just some others, what appeared to be civilians in the videos that I've seen, trying to render first aid. One was getting compressions done, and then the other was laying on their side. And then as I came here, I saw one of those troops loaded in to an ambulance that sped off here with a police escort. At this hour, another thing I do want to show you very quickly, Elizabeth, and it's tough to see. I'm just going to ask some folks here to step out of the way. It's on the other side of this sign, are other members of the National Guard who have been here for the entirety of the afternoon. In fact, I was running up here to this scene from our office, which is only a few blocks away, and some of those guardsmen that you're seeing and others as well were sprinting up to this scene in front of me on their cell phones, trying to figure out what was going on. And they have now been here over the course of the last few hours to not just stand at attention and guard this scene, but also actively trying to get some information about what has happened to their fellow service members. There was chaos here, Elizabeth, just an hour or so ago when those shots rang out. Our photographer, Chris Plater, who was here on the scene, tells me that there were people sprinting through this park. Another eyewitness tells me she saw young children and their parents and their caregivers sprinting through this park trying to get to cover. It has now calmed here. This investigation, though, proceeds, and you can see just how heavy the police presence is here behind me as they continue to process this scene, Elizabeth.
And of course, understandable that you would be seeing those National Guard members stationed there. So much concern this happening just the day before Thanksgiving. Jay, we do know that the suspect in this shooting is in custody.
That's right, Elizabeth. It's our understanding, according to law enforcement sources, that the suspect is not just in custody, but sources tell us was wounded in this and was loaded into an ambulance. I did not see that suspect loaded onto the ambulance, but sources tell those of us, some of our colleagues at ABC, that as of right now, they believe there is only 1 suspect. That suspect is in custody and is receiving medical attention, Elizabeth.
Let's bring in our ABC News Chief Global Affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz. Martha, I know you were walking through that scene just there.
I was, Elizabeth. As you know, it's about 2 or 3 blocks from here in our bureau, and walked down as soon as I got in, and you could see other National Guardsmen gathered there around the area. These are Guardsmen, as you also know, Elizabeth, we see every day, and we don't know which ones were shot. But these are people we see every day. And this is not a high crime area. This is an area, there's a beautiful park in the middle of it, a beautiful square there where people walk around and have lunch. That was near a metro station, as we know. But I think it's important to remember who the National Guard is. These are citizen soldiers. Those 2 guardsmen and women who were shot today have regular jobs back in West Virginia. They do this, they volunteer, they are volunteers for the National Guard. And I have to say, as I walk around and the Guard is outside or outside of Starbucks, people were very nice to them. And thank you. I heard an occasional person say, "What are you doing here?" And the Guardsmen just smiled and kept walking. So they are a regular presence for the last couple of months in our neighborhood here. But it's really important to remember they are citizen soldiers who have volunteered for this duty.
Such an important reminder. People with regular jobs, regular lives back at home. Martha, this is a big presence of the National Guard that we've seen here in D.C. for several months now. More than 2,000 National Guard members have been here stationed in this area.
That's exactly right. And of course, we know the president called for them because of a crime in the city. And again, they were all over the city. Mostly they are by the monuments. They're by the Washington Monument. We're, of course, fairly close to the Washington Monument here. And again, we're about 3 blocks from the White House. We're about 3 blocks from that crime scene. But that is our neighborhood that we walk around every day. And again, it is not a high crime area. I don't think they know exactly what happened there yet and whether there was a motive, but that's something we're watching very, very carefully. I know Aaron Katersky has his eye on that, especially, and our Pierre Thomas as well, to see if there was any motive there, whether it was a confrontation or whether it was some sort of targeted killing, and that's what we do not know at this point, but so important to find out at this point, Elizabeth.
No question, and let's bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, what do we know at this point about the suspect and any sort of motive, as of course this is just so early on still?
It appears the National Guardsmen who were shot were able to return fire, and the suspect who was taken into custody was critically wounded and now receiving medical attention. It's believed to be the only suspect, Elizabeth. Right now, D.C. Metro Police, along with the colleagues from federal law enforcement agencies, are there on the scene, as Jay O'Brien pointed out, and what they're doing is trying to find video from the metro station, from nearby businesses, to see what they can see in advance of the shooting. As Martha suggested, was this some kind of targeted thing? Was it a confrontation where the suspect walked right up to them for some particular reason? But that video evidence, as the authorities dig through it, perhaps is going to give them clues as to what the motive for this was. But if this does turn out to be targeted, it would reinforce what law enforcement authorities have been fearing for several months now, and that is the heightened threat environment in the country is putting particular pressure on people in uniform, members of the military and law enforcement who have increasingly come under targeted attack. Too early to say in this case, Elizabeth, but that is something that the authorities are considering now.
And Aaron, we do not yet know the identities of those National Guard members. We know that they were critically wounded. Anything else about who they were at this time?
We don't know their identities, but we know they were from West Virginia. And initially, the governor of West Virginia, Governor Morrisey, put on social media that they had succumbed to their injuries, and we knew they were critically wounded. Then, in a subsequent post, the governor walked that back to say there had been conflicting information about their condition, so we're still waiting for firm information. But the governor did say, regardless, that the state is now paying tribute to their service, to their sacrifice. They were put there on orders of President Trump to help patrol the district. Now the governor says that he and the entire state are going to demand accountability for what happened today.
Of course. Louis Martinez, our Pentagon reporter, let's bring you in here. Louis, what can you tell us about how these National Guard members were armed? What were their orders as they were there, just a couple of blocks away from the White House?
Elizabeth, a lot of these National Guardsmen are armed, but a lot depends on the job that they're doing at the time. For example, if they're doing beautification projects, they are not armed. But if they are on patrol, for the most part, they are. You also see them wearing tactical vests that afford them some kind of protection. But when it comes to law enforcement duties, remember, we've been talking a lot this year about posse comitatus, whether active duty troops can actually carry out law enforcement duties because the Posse Comitatus Act does not allow U.S. active duty service members to carry out law enforcement. However, these personnel are authorized to do this because they fall under a very specific narrow duty, which is that they fall under the President of the United States, not under state guardsmen. Now, that is for the D.C. National Guard. They are allowed to carry out law enforcement duties. These were West Virginia National Guardsmen, and they, under their state control, would not be authorized to carry out law enforcement duties in an area outside of their own state. Typically, what has been happening here inside the district, whenever there has been some kind of a crime situation where these National Guardsmen have been around, they are not authorized to arrest or detain anybody, but what they typically do is they report a crime, or they are used to help with any kind of, let's say, crowd control situation that may develop. And then it is the local law enforcement, in this case the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C., that then comes in and carries out the law enforcement. So kind of confusing, but at the same time, they do not have the authority right now to carry out any law enforcement now. However, under they operate under what are called the standard rules of force. This means that they try to de-escalate a situation first, and then they have the inherent right of self-defense, but they are not only allowed to use lethal firepower if there's an immediate threat or an immediate death threat upon them at that moment. And that's the situation that obviously these guardsmen found themselves under. That's why at least one of them appears to have at least fired back a weapon that injured the suspect.
Incredibly helpful context. Louis, stick with us. Let's bring in Selena Wang, senior White House correspondent. Selena, we should note President Trump is not at the White House. He is there at Mar-a-Lago. You are traveling with him where he is celebrating Thanksgiving. But we have heard from the president about this. What is he saying? We also know that the White House had been, or is still, tell us, on lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this happened just blocks away from the White House, so no surprise that the White House is still on lockdown. But as you say, the president is currently here in West Palm Beach. He finished a round of golfing. He is back at his resort in Mar-a-Lago, and he's been actively monitoring the situation. In fact, he posted on Truth Social not long ago the following, that, quote, the animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless, will pay a very steep price. We did also hear from the vice president. He was addressing military troops at Fort Campbell, and he said at the time that there's a lot we don't know, including the motive, but he said what we do know is that they were harmed in the line of duty. Now, it has been months since President Trump had deployed more than 2,000 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. The president said this was about cracking down on crime. But as you were just talking about with Louis, they've also been involved in other projects like beautification of the city. In addition to patrolling, they've also been seen picking up trash, participating in other community activities like helping to staff of food banks. And they are heavily concentrated in that downtown area around the metro station where this occurred, by the White House, by our bureau as well. But as you know, Elizabeth, this has also been a controversial deployment. There have been local protests who have been speaking out against the deployment of the National Guard troops, as President Trump has been consistently touting the success of having these troops in the city. The president frequently talks about how low the crime rates are in D.C. In fact, just yesterday, when the president was pardoning the turkeys at the White House, I just want to read to you what he said yesterday. He said, quote, so Washington, D.C. is now a totally safe city, and a year ago it was a criminal mess, and you could walk down any street in Washington now and you're going to be just fine. And I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank you for the job you've done here. It is incredible. And Elizabeth, just as a reminder, I have spoken to some of these National Guard troops. They come from all across the country. For many of them, this is not their full-time job. They spend months away from their family at a time. And these troops were away from their family during the Thanksgiving week.
Just so horrific, happening a day before the holiday. Let's bring in Richard Frankel, former FBI agent. Richard, we understand that the Attorney General said that the FBI is engaged in this investigation. Federal agents are on the scene. Talk to us a little bit about how this investigation will unfold from here. We know that the scene has been secured at this point.
Yeah, so the focus now is on the intel. They're going to be looking at the motive. They're going to be looking at who this person is. The motive, I think, is actually one of the most important things that they're going to be following up on. who is this guy? Why did he do it? They're going to be looking at the video, as I believe Aaron had said. They're going to look at the video to see how he approached the soldiers and then shot them. They're going to see what kind of weapons he had. Where did he get the weapons? They're now going to go back into his life. They're going to see, is he connected to anyone? Listen, is this guy a lone wolf, a lone actor, or is he connected to some group, whether overseas or domestic? They're going to have to look into all that. They're going to be looking in to see how he was inspired, if this is in fact, a terrorism type of case, as opposed to just somebody who went up and shot somebody out of the blue. They're going to be looking to see everything about this person because it matters as to, is there anything to follow up? In other words, is there anyone else out there that they now have to worry about? If you go back to other cases, where they go back to their residence, there were booby traps in those residences. So they're going to be looking at that as they look into this person's life. They're going to go back to his residence. They're going to go in there safe and secure. They're then going to go through all of his electronic evidence, through forensic evidence. They're going to find out everything they can about this guy because this may not be the end of the threat. It could be, but this may just be part of a larger threat that law enforcement is going to have to look into now.
No question. Let's bring back ABC News Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz. Martha, let's just set the scene here. This is an area that is not far from where we are, obviously a couple blocks from the White House, an area where the shooting took place that typically is one of the safest parts of D.C.
It certainly is, Elizabeth. And on the way in, after I heard about this shooting and going through these neighborhoods, you could see people kind of streaming out, not from office buildings, but they were largely tourists. We're across the street from a major hotel. There were people gathered around that hotel who had just been down near the scene, who were absolutely horrified, near tears, a very somber mood around where we are. But it is an easy walk down there. It is where we often are. It is places to eat luncheon. It's places to get coffee. And we see these National Guard every single day. There are not a lot of them. We don't see a lot of them, but you always see groups of 2 or 3 walking around, occasionally around this neighborhood. Mostly they are around the tourist areas and protecting those areas. And another thing, Elizabeth, I think it's important to say, they did, as Louis said, they did have a type of protection on. And where they were shot, we don't know, but they do wear protective armor. Now, this is not heavy armor. I don't believe, just from looking at it, frankly, that there are huge plates in that armor. I don't know that for certain, but from my looking at them over the last few weeks, it does not look like they have huge plates in, but they absolutely had protective body armor on of some sort. Whether these Guard members were armed or not, we also do not know that. And again, the big question is, were they targeted? It is a short way from the metro station where the 2 Guard were shot. We don't know whether it started there at the metro station and came out onto the street, but it is probably a half a block or at least across the street from that metro station that we all know well as well, Elizabeth.
Such a big question about the motive here. And of course, we do know that those 2 members of the National Guard critically wounded, according to President Trump. Martha Raddatz, Jay O'Brien, Lou Martinez, Richard Frankel, Selena Wang, Aaron Katursky, thank you all so much. We will have much more continuing coverage on this breaking story just ahead.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands. It's a serial killer case.
This killer, he's the Dahmer you've never heard of.
More and more men are going missing, and then the lead broke the case open. They discovered the farm.
The whole place was so bizarre.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
The largest number of unidentified human remains, second only to the World Trade Center.
Not many people live to tell about their involvement with the serial killer.
Everything we know about this case comes from you.
Absolutely.
Let's not do that. Ooh, I'm sorry.
Never before a face-to-face interview with a camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you,
Am I the evil culprit, the accomplice?
I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. Only on Hulu.
Abby and Libby had gone on a walk, but we went to pick them up. They weren't there.
When the bodies were found, it felt different than any crime scene that I've ever seen.
She captured the image of her own murderer.
That Libby was able to get the video was very amazing.
There were dozens of viable suspects. Here's the rest of the story. Here's what they didn't tell you.
The person that did this is pure evil.
Capturing their killer. The Girls on the High Bridge. Only on Hulu.
Yeah, I'm just an actor. I don't know how to help people.
Now is your chance. Help people connect to what's missing.
Well, they could just get a therapist.
It's not that easy here.
Japan is my home now. I want you to understand.
I hate you.
I'm messing with people's lives. I'm just trying to help.
Rental Family. Only in theaters. Rated PG-13.
Tuesday night.
This is What Would You Do? The Holiday Special.
During the holidays, there's pressure on single people. If you saw a woman being pressured to couple up, what would you do?
You're the only one that's not with somebody. You're kind of turning into a loser, to be honest. You have no right to be talking to your friend like that.
And what would you do if you saw a mom in need?
This one's declined.
Trying to buy a Christmas gift.
It's Christmas.
What Would You Do? The Holiday Edition.
Tuesday night on ABC.
ABC's Nightline. The stories that shape your world, that shape your life. Dramatic, stunning, empowering, life-changing. For 45 years, the most powerful stories of our time.
This is Nightline.
Wherever the story is, Nightline will take you there. Just because it's late night doesn't mean you should be in the dark. For a brighter take on the day, this is ABC's Nightline. Late night on ABC.
I'm Elizabeth Schulze in Washington. Breaking news this hour on ABC News Live. Multiple officials say that 2 members of the National Guard from West Virginia were shot this afternoon in downtown Washington, D.C., just blocks away from the White House. The Metropolitan Police Department says the scene has been secured. 1 suspect is in custody. We are awaiting a briefing from the mayor. We will be sure to bring you that as soon as we know when that is happening. We do have team coverage following every development in this. ABC News correspondent Jay O'Brien, who is on the scene, ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Richard Frankel, Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz, and ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez. Jay, I'll start with you first. You were there on the scene. You've been there since this afternoon. Walk us through what we know about this shooting, how it all unfolded.
Well, Elizabeth, from what we can see here on the scene, the crime scene investigation appears to be concentrated right around that metro stop there. That is the Farragut West metro station. It comes out here. We're, again, about a block away from the White House. There are 2 entrances there, one on this side and then one kind of catty-cornered on a right angle from that open garage door. And you can see some crime scene investigators walking in there now as we speak. There's a wide law enforcement presence here from members of the Secret Service to the FBI. Director Kash Patel was on scene here earlier, to the ATF, and the list goes on. When we first arrived here on scene, which was a little over an hour and a half ago, perhaps even more, what we came upon was chaos. One of our photographers, Chris Plater, who's on the other end of the lens of this camera, was the first on scene here. When he arrived, he saw people running through this park, heading that way, trying to get to safety. And as he got to the entrance of that metro station, he saw those 2 wounded National Guardsmen receiving medical attention. When I got here, I saw one of them loaded into an ambulance that sped off here, Elizabeth. A lot of questions here still on the scene, and I can tell you that there are still National Guard troops here standing at the perimeter, not just providing security here and crowd control, but also waiting with bated breath to hear what has happened to their brothers and sisters in arms here. When I got here on scene, we were much closer, and we were right at the end of this block here, and I was just standing right in front of the National Guard troops as they started to hear the news of exactly what had transpired, and they were emotional. They had a lot of questions as to exactly how this played out and the condition of those 2 service members, which we've received conflicting reports on at this hour, Elizabeth.
Right, and President Trump had said that both the service members were critically wounded. We're waiting other updates on that, Jay.
Exactly right, Elizabeth. And we're awaiting a press conference from the mayor of Washington, D.C. We hope to get more information when she speaks to cameras not long from now. And additionally, we're hoping to get more information on the suspect here. It's our understanding that federal law enforcement say right now they have only one suspect, and that suspect was wounded as well and is receiving medical attention. But we don't know beyond that. The only thing we can really tell you about the status of this investigation is that it is very fluid and very much ongoing. As you can see here, it's tough to see across the park, but I just want to show you the sheer size and scale of the law enforcement presence here, from D.C. Metropolitan Police to the FBI to the ATF, and the list goes on and on and on. They're staging there across the park, again, right in front of that metro station, as they continue to process this scene in an investigation that we expect to play out well into the night, Elizabeth.
No doubt about that. Let's bring in Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz. Martha, you were just near that scene just a bit ago. And, you know, it's striking as we look at those pictures, you see still some members of the National Guard there at that scene.
There and certainly grieving about what happened today. And we also just heard from Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who walked outside the Pentagon, said he had been in some meetings today and then heard and was briefed on this dastardly act targeting the best of America. He said heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C. serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. He also adds they were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they loved their fellow Americans. And this is the part I'm paying attention here. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. Again, that is the question we have had today, whether they were specifically targeted. Pete Hegseth said someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. The response will be, he said, this will not stand. That's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army, to the National Guard to add 500 additional troops. They do have this rapid reaction force, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. So I would say, again, the headline from that, from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth walking outside the Pentagon just a short time ago and putting this on social media and releasing this, someone decided to turn that love for America into targeting National Guardsmen, and he has been briefed. We will await any official statement on that beyond the official statement of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. In the meanwhile, 500 additional Guardsmen will be coming into Washington, D.C., according to Secretary Hegseth. Elizabeth.
Martha, thank you with that breaking news from the Defense Secretary. Let's bring in Louis Martinez. Louis, talk to us a little bit about what we know about these National Guard members. What are we hearing from the National Guard at this point?
Well, what we do have confirmed is that these are individuals who are serving in the West Virginia National Guard. We should point out that it was about more than 2,000, 2,100, I think, is the current number of National Guardsmen serving right now in Washington, D.C. About half of them are actually D.C. National Guardsmen. The balance come from about 6 states or so, and in varying degrees of numbers. Some of them have 100, and some, others have 50, others have several hundred. In this case, the West Virginia National Guard had about 400 Guardsmen back in August and September. They've reduced their numbers down to 150. The question is about how much longer these Guardsmen from other states will be here and serving in Washington, D.C. We know that the D.C. National Guard has pretty much been extended indefinitely. They're kind of here on a rolling basis. The other states, some have indicated that they're going to pull them back at some point, but the question is about the timeline. What we do know is that most of these Guardsmen are not what you would think or would be military policemen. When we come into contact with National Guardsmen during natural disasters here in this country, what we find is that a lot of them serving engineering battalions. We know that some serve in aviation units, some are mechanics. There's a wide variety of skill sets within the National Guard. So when we initially heard that National Guard were coming here to Washington, D.C., one of the big questions was, well, are most of these going to be military policemen who are trained in law enforcement duties? And it's not really the case. Yes, there are military policemen police companies here from other states and from the D.C. National Guard. But on balance, most of them are, as I just laid out, they come from a wide variety of skill sets. And so there's varying degrees of experience, varying degrees of what they can do. But again, we talked about earlier about those standards, rules of force, which again, they try to de-escalate first. If something additional happens where they are threatened, then they can carry out self-defense. And if there's lethal action being taken against them, that's when they can respond with lethal firepower. And it appears that was the case here, Elizabeth.
And Louis, you know, talk to us a little bit about how they are prepared to respond, you know, in that situation, as you just touched on a bit. Are these National Guard members expecting, you know, what kind of orders are they following in a shooting, if a shooting like this were to happen? Obviously, we don't know the motive. We're still waiting to understand exactly what the motive was here.
If they are fired upon, Elizabeth, they can respond with firepower. As we talked about earlier, most of them are armed and situational. Depends on whether they're in, let's say, a beautification project. In that case, they're not going to be armed. So it's mission dependent. If they are on patrol, as these soldiers, these National Guardsmen were at this metro station, then yes, they would be armed. I myself have seen them armed because that is the metro stop that I get out every single day. Actually, just this morning, that is that stop right there. That's where I came out in the escalator. And so when just before I got on the escalator, I saw two National Guardsmen. I'm not sure if they were from the same unit, but they were there on duty, which is that they stand by. They rotate around the platform from several different locations. They stand around either at the entrance downstairs or upstairs. So there's a rotating level of duty. But again, they are armed. They have tactical vests that they also wear. And if there is a life-threatening situation, yes, they can respond with lethal force. But again, for the most part, they are just there to report if they see any criminal activity, because they don't have law enforcement responsibilities here in the district right now. And so that means that if they see something, they would actually call the local police department, which is the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department.
Louis Martinez, thanks so much. Let's bring in Richard Frankel, former FBI agent. We are now, first we're going to actually go to FBI Director Kash Patel. Let's listen in.
Were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. The FBI will lead out on that mission with our interagency partners, to include the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, ATF, DEA, and we're thankful for the mayor's assistance in this matter, the Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because it's a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice. I would lastly like to add to the American public and the world, please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day, and we must remember them on this day and every day, and their families and the sacrifice they have made. I will now turn it over to Chief Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Carroll. I'm the Executive Assistant Chief here at the Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I, too, want to send my thoughts and prayers to the families of the Guardsmen and to the Guardsmen who are in critical condition in a local hospital. I am joined by members and leadership from the D.C. National Guard, from the West Virginia National Guard, United States Secret Service, Deputy Mayor Pia, Fire Chief Donnelly, and Metro's General Manager Randy Clark. And we join with the FBI Director in ensuring that MPD investigates, the U.S. Attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent of the law. I've had the opportunity to brief U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was speaking to the president when I called, as well as the United States Attorney Pirro, who assured me that this case will have her office's complete attention.
Mayor, was there any other suspect?
Chief.
Sure. So no, at this time, there was no indication that there was any other suspect. The one suspect that was involved in this incident, they were shot during the interaction, and they were transported to the hospital for treatment.
Mayor, does this validate the need for the National Guard here in D.C.?
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these Guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
Mayor, can you tell us any more details on the condition of the two National Guardsmen and whether or not anyone else was injured? And a quick question follow-up for the FBI Director. You said that we'll make sure we find the perpetrators for this act. So just to clarify, the person believed to be responsible is in custody and there are no other suspects.
Sure, so I can start out. Again, Chief Carroll from MPD. So both of the individuals, the Guard members, they are in critical condition in a local hospital at this time being treated. At this point, we have no other suspects. We have reviewed video from the area. It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
Have you got any sense of motive?
No, at this time, obviously, we're very in the preliminary stages of investigation. There's a lot of things, a lot of agents that are here from various federal agencies, law enforcement agencies. We have the full power of the FBI and our federal partners here in the task force. So we're looking at all those different aspects, but we don't have any motive.
Were the National Guardsmen armed, sir?
The National Guardsmen that were shot, I'm told they were armed.
Did they get off shots?
At this time, that's part of the preliminary investigation.
Can you explain how the suspect was apprehended?
Chief.
Sure. So how the suspect was apprehended, as I said, the individual, the suspect came around the corner. He immediately started firing a firearm at the two National Guard members. So at that time, there were other National Guard members that were in the area. They heard the gunfire. They actually were able to intervene and to kind of hold down the suspect after he had been shot on the ground until law enforcement got there within moments.
And he was shot by a National Guardsman?
At this point, we're still investigating exactly who shot the individual. It's not clear at this time.
Were there DC policemen in the area?
We don't know what kind of weapon. There was DC police. It happened right in front of the Metro, although there is no indication that the perpetrator was on the Metro. So there's Metro Transit Police in the area, and obviously being on 17th Street by the White House, Uniform Division Secret Service are in the immediate area as well.
What kind of weapon the alleged perpetrator used?
We do not know at this time. It's still in investigation.
We're going to be able to take a couple more.
Has been able to question the suspect, or is his condition so severe that you haven't been able to have a conversation?
Sure. Again, so as I said, we're very preliminary in the investigation, so we're looking into all aspects of who the individual is, his connections. At this time, he's still in the hospital receiving treatment.
And I would just like to hang on. I would just like to add, the reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard who responded due to their extensive training to secure American lives today. There was not any further injury and any further shootings. We should highlight the fact that the men and women of law enforcement, the interagency, the Department of War, and the National Guard executed their training with great precision today and prevented an even greater tragedy from befalling us These National Guardsmen are heroes, and we must pray for their safety and their speedy recovery. And as the chief said, we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation. We will run down every single lead, every piece of evidence. This is the power of the U.S. government at its best at the state, local, and federal level. That is why this interagency group is standing behind us to assure America and the world that we will continue to keep D.C. safe. And thankfully, we have Metropolitan Police Department, the National Guardsmen, and federal agents, and the Department of Justice and an Attorney General willing to prosecute the mission to keep Americans safe. And President Trump has rightly stated that this heinous act will be investigated, and he has thanked the National Guardsmen and women and the men and women of law enforcement.
Thank you.
Families have notified?
Did the suspect say anything at the time? Why did the West Virginia governor say that they were killed? Chief, was anyone else shot besides the two?
Have the families been notified?
We have been listening to a live briefing with the FBI director, Metropolitan Police, and D.C. mayor in the wake of that shooting here in Washington. Just a couple of blocks from the White House, 2 National Guard members shot. We are learning new information about exactly how this shooting went down. About 2:15 in the afternoon, according to law enforcement, a suspect turned around the corner at 17th and I Street, fired at National Guard members. The mayor, Muriel Bowser, said this was a targeted shooting. We know that those 2 National Guard members are in critical condition in the hospital. 1 suspect is in custody, also in the hospital. The police saying that there is no indication there is anything other than 1 suspect at this time, also saying that those National Guard members are believed to have been armed. Let's bring in ABC News law enforcement contributor and former FBI agent Richard Frankel. Richard, we did hear from the D.C. mayor calling this a targeted shooting. Talk to us multiple times. All of the officials there stressed this is a preliminary investigation, but talk to us about some of your takeaways from what you just heard.
Yeah, so it wasn't something that was, a back and forth between the shooter and the National Guardsmen. The shooter comes around the corner and immediately targets those guardsmen, the 2 soldiers. That indicates this was a preconceived plan for him to target soldiers in that area. One of the things I want to find out is what type of weapon was he carrying? Was it a handgun? Was it a long gun? I don't think we've been told that yet. Also, now we need to know, we really need to know what the motive is and who, if anyone, is associated with him. Everything that came out of the preliminary investigation so far shows that he was the only shooter on scene, and that the area is safe. But what we really need to know is who inspired him, if anyone, who directed him, if anyone. Is he part of a group, whether it's domestic or foreign? Was he inspired online, or was he inspired in person? Are there other people that we need to worry about? Is he part of a cell or a group that could be planning other targeted attacks, either in D.C. or anywhere else in the nation? Could this just be a lone wolf? Really, we just don't know at this point. But that, as the FBI director was saying, that needs to be the focus at this point. Who is this guy? What was the motive? And who else, if anyone, is associated with him?
There, the FBI director, Kash Patel, saying they will use all state, local, federal resources as part of this investigation. Also saying this will be treated as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, will be investigated by the FBI. Let's bring in our senior Pentagon reporter, Louis Martinez. Louis, what do we know at this point about those 2 National Guard members who were shot?
Well, we had conflicting information earlier, Elizabeth, about the status of the 2 National Guardsmen from West Virginia. But the latest is that we're trying to get more information about their status, since one of the things that we did hear there from the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, was that she indicated that they are critically injured. That would be a change from what we heard from the West Virginia governor about an hour and a half ago. But that would be good news about their status. Now, one of the other things that we do know is that they are among 150 West Virginia National Guardsmen that are currently serving here in Washington, D.C. right now. At one point, there were about 400 National Guardsmen from that state who were serving here. The deployment happened around August or so, and since then, their numbers have gone down. Overall, they reflect the status of 6 other states that have also provided National Guardsmen to Washington, D.C. It's about 2,100 National Guardsmen who are currently serving in the city, but about half that number are only from D.C. The rest come from other states. It's unclear exactly how long these National Guardsmen from these other states are going to be serving here in the city. What we do know is that the D.C. National Guard is at least going to be, they're on an open-ended assignment as of right now. But what we did hear from the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser there was indications that they are continuing to receive medical treatment.
And Louis, we did hear from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that President Trump should send more National Guard members to D.C. in the wake of this now. Yes, he actually said that he's traveling in the Dominican Republic right now. Obviously, there's a lot going on with Venezuela and with a lot of U.S. troops in the Caribbean. As part of that anti-cartel mission, as part of maybe a pressure campaign against Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. So he was there on an official business trip to the Dominican Republic. And after having met with senior officials there, he came down and spoke to reporters and spoke about how this was a violent attack and that this was targeted. And he also indicated that President Trump, he would be following through on a request from President Trump to send 500 additional more National Guardsmen to the city of Washington, D.C. So this is a process. Remember that the president actually controls the D.C. National Guard. There is no governor in the District of Columbia, so it is the president who controls the forces. Then that authority is delegated down to the Defense Secretary and delegated down even further to the Secretary of the Army. So it appears now that at least that Secretary Hegseth indicating that 500 additional Guardsmen are going to be joining the 2,100 who are already serving here in Washington. Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez. Louis, thanks so much. Let's bring in Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, I know you've been working your sources on this. What are you learning at this point about how this all unfolded?
Well, law enforcement officials are emphasizing that this was targeted, as my colleagues just spoke about, that the suspect appeared to be focusing his interest and his actions on the National Guard because of their the way that they were dressed. Shots were fired. Ambush-like scenario. Then the National Guard were able to respond. We believe, police can't quite confirm that officially yet, but that's the early guidance that someone from the National Guard who was armed responded. They were able to apprehend the suspect who was in custody, transported to the hospital after receiving some level of medical attention. This case is now being investigated by D.C. police. FBI will likely take a lead depending on how the evidence unfolds. This has all of government, from the Attorney General to the FBI Director, ATF, all law enforcement officials are now trying to dig into this person's background to figure out why. Why was this person apparently targeting members of the U.S. National Guard?
What do we know at this point, if anything, Pierre, about the 2 Guard members who were targeted?
Well, we know that they're from West Virginia. That much we know. The governor unfortunately had put out information that they were deceased. That turned out, thankfully, not to be the case. We had some guidance that they were in grave condition, but we were waiting for official notification. We thought the governor had given that, but thankfully, the information is that these 2 National Guardsmen are in critical condition, and hopefully they will survive.
We do hope that. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, thanks so much. Let's go to the scene now where we find our correspondent Jay O'Brien. Jay, you have been there since this unfolded earlier this afternoon. Talk to us a little bit about what the scene is like now, what you're learning as you've really watched this unfold.
Yeah, Elizabeth, this scene is being processed now. We've seen a wide-scale federal law enforcement presence here. I just want to show you exactly what that looks like. And so we've shown you over the course of the broadcast the entrance to the metro station where all this transpired, and then just a few steps away, right around where our Chris Plater, our photojournalist, saw those 2 wounded guardsmen down receiving aid. You see those law enforcement officers there processing this scene. We've seen FBI here on scene, D.C. Metro Police, the National National Guard is here, the ATF is here. And another thing we've noticed here as we've been here now for the last few hours or so, Elizabeth, is that we've also seen FBI agents and ATF agents going door to door to the various businesses here. Our Aaron Katersky has reporting that they are just trying to find video from any business they can anywhere near this metro station to try to piece together the moments before and after what law enforcement now says, according to that press conference, is a targeted attack. And it's worth pointing out here, Elizabeth, one of the primary places where you see the National Guard here in Washington, D.C., after they were deployed here to the city on that public safety mission some months back by President Trump, is in metro stations. They often frequent metro stations, either inside the station itself where the train comes in or in the entrance vestibule right here above ground. I actually, in fact, walked through that metro station maybe a half hour to an hour before those shots rang out. And I saw National Guard troops standing there right at the top of the escalators, as they so often do, as people get up those escalators and go out onto the sidewalk and leave the metro station. So point being, as law enforcement characterizes this as a targeted attack, it is at a metro station where you so often find these National Guard troops here in Washington, D.C.
Jay, this is an area that is very populated by tourists, typically seen as a safe area in Washington, D.C., and as you pointed out, not far at all from the White House.
No, it's not, Elizabeth. We are a block from Lafayette Park, which is really the entrance, if you will, of the White House. We are just about a block away from the White House. And just to point out how tragic this is and how rattling it is for Washington, D.C., this is a metro stop that is frequented by people who work at the White House. This is a cafe that is frequented by people who work at the White House, because, again, it is a block away. So to hear this gunfire ring out, to see these National Guard troops wounded, simply doing their duty, following their orders here in Washington, D.C., has really left a black cloud over this scene. And we mentioned the federal law enforcement that's here, but there are also National Guard troops here as well, performing crowd control, standing vigilant here. There are some just off to my right. They have been here over the course of the day, doing their jobs, but also, as we've heard their conversations, very shaken about what has happened to their colleagues and desperate for some kind of information of their condition at this hour.
Understandably desperate for those updates. Jay O'Brien, thanks so much. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky has been making calls on this. Aaron, I know that you are working your sources, too, on this investigation. What are you learning at this hour? We do know we got in that update from the D.C. Mayor, Muriel Bowser, calling this a targeted attack.
Targeted attack involving a suspect who apparently ran up to the National Guardsmen while on patrol outside the metro station and immediately pointed his gun, fired. They were able to respond. The suspect is now critically hurt and in custody, and the authorities have not yet released any of the names, but they do have a name of a suspect that they are working with. They're trying to track down everything they can about that individual's background to help them understand whether this may have been inspired by a foreign terror group or some political flashpoint in the country, just to give them a sense of what may have led up to this. They're still canvassing for any video they can find from businesses in the area, interviewing witnesses to understand the immediate moments preceding the shooting so they can better get a sense of how it was carried out. But of course, the focus is going to be on those two guardsmen critically hurt and who are in the hospital receiving care. At least one of them gravely wounded, Elizabeth.
And we are eagerly awaiting any updates on their condition. Aaron, at this point, just one suspect in this shooting, is that right?
Just one suspect, according to the authorities, and always in the immediate aftermath of any kind of an attack like this, the police may well assume there are more, but they seem confident. You heard the deputy chief of the D.C. Metro Police say that they seem confident there's just the one suspect who's now in custody. But now that they're pretty sure this was a targeted shooting, it does underscore a fear that law enforcement authorities around the country have had for a number of months now in our highly charged political environment and global environment, really, that people in uniform, be they military personnel or law enforcement, have increasingly been targeted and now come under attack there in Washington.
And as we have reported, these National Guard members, people in uniform, but also ordinary lives, ordinary people with jobs back home. Aaron Katursky, thank you. Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is in West Palm Beach, Florida. We should note, of course, President Trump is not at the White House right now. He is there at Mar-a-Lago. Selena, you are traveling with the president. What are we hearing at this hour from President Trump about this?
Well, first of all, the White House had been under lockdown, considering this happened just blocks away from the White House. But we are learning that that lockdown has been lifted. The president, as you say, he's here in West Palm Beach. He is now back at his Mar-a-Lago resort, and he's been monitoring the situation throughout the day. He did post on Truth Social just a couple of hours ago saying that, quote, the animal that shot the two National Guardsmen will pay a very steep price. We have not seen the president. We have not heard him on camera. But we did hear from the vice president, who is traveling to Fort Campbell to address service members ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. He said at the time, earlier today, just a few hours ago, that there's a lot we don't know, including the motive, but he condemned the harm of troops who were injured in the line of duty. And this comes as President Trump has been frequently touting the deployment of these National Guard troops. Just yesterday, the president said that now it is safe to walk through the streets of D.C. He's described a D.C. as a place that had been ridden with crime, but his deployment of troops has fixed that problem. Now, he did incorrectly say, he has been incorrectly saying that there have been 0 homicides in D.C. over the past 6 months. While the numbers have come down, there were, in fact, according to police data, 61 homicides over the last 6 months. And the president had deployed more than 2,000 troops back in August. There are still some 2,000 troops in D.C. right now. As you were talking earlier with Louis, many of them are involved in projects outside of supporting the local police, outside of patrolling, including beautification projects like picking up trash, helping the community in other ways like staffing food banks. And these are people that we frequently see in D.C. They've really become a regular presence. And I've spoken to some of them, and many of them are not from D.C. They come to D.C. for months at a time. They leave their families at home. And this is a job that is often not their full-time job either. They still rely on separate work for regular paychecks.
And Selena, we did hear from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying he's asked Trump to send additional National Guard members to Washington now in the wake of this shooting.
That's right. Hegseth saying that President Trump has asked him to deploy another 500 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. In a post on social media, Hegseth saying, quote, this will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. And I think it's worth mentioning again that the area where this happened is considered a safe area. This is a place where you and I walk through every day. A lot of tourists, federal government workers, office workers. We have seen these National Guard troops concentrated in this downtown area. But again, this is not considered an unsafe area. So really a shocking and tragic moment.
No question, the day before a holiday, too. Selena Wang, thanks so much. Let's get back to senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez. Louis, we heard from authorities that this suspect turned around the corner, opened fire. As they say, it was a targeted attack on these National Guard members. Explain to us, what are the orders for these Guard members? How are they supposed to respond in a situation like that?
Elizabeth, when they are in a situation like this, when they are on patrol, because that is what they're doing, even though they say they are standing still, then at a position there at that metro stop, either inside or outside of the metro stop, they're on patrol. And so these individuals would have been armed, more than likely, because that is the mission set. Depending on the mission that they're doing, let's say if they're doing beautification or not, if it's beautification, they're not going to be armed. If they are on patrol, yes, they are. Now, what they're doing is they are providing assistance to local law enforcement because they don't have law enforcement authorities right now in the District of Columbia. But what they do see is if they see any criminal activity, they report it to the local law enforcement, which is the Metropolitan Police Department, and then they are the ones that carry out and they provide any assistance there after that. But in a situation where they find themselves in a life-threatening situation, they do have the inherent right of self-defense. Right now, they are under what are called the standard rules for the use of force for any domestic, any military personnel on domestic assignment. That is what is used for them. And essentially, it says if they find themselves in a tough situation, you de-escalate. If you find yourself in a difficult situation, you have self-defense. If you're facing lethal force, you use lethal force in response.
And it's unfortunate that it had to escalate that way. Louis Martinez, thanks so much. Still with us is ABC News law enforcement contributor, former FBI agent Richard Frankel. Richard, we did hear our Pierre Thomas say that the FBI is expected to take the lead on this investigation. Obviously, the big question here is motive. So walk us through what they would be looking at in these initial hours after this shooting.
Yeah, motive is the most important thing, at least as far as the FBI is concerned right now. So what they're going to do is they're going to, one, be looking at the scene, confirming that he was by himself, that it was a targeted attack. They're going to have the ATF run the gun. They have to find out everything they can about that weapon, where it was bought, how long has this person had it. They're going to actually even try to go back and see if he had any training with the weapon. Then they're going to be going into this person's past. Since the person is, the shooter is in custody, it's most likely that they have identified him at this point. So they're going to be looking at all of his electronic media. So if he had a phone or anything on him, they're going to be going straight into that. Plus, they're going to be going back to the person's residence, and they're going to be doing a full exam on the person. In other words, they're going to go into the apartment or the residence, wherever he is, and learn everything they can about him. Go on if he's got electronic materials in the apartment, books, writings, anything that they can get that can show motive. Is he connected to anyone? They're going to be looking at any groups that he might be part of. Was he having contact with either groups here in the U.S. or was he having groups internationally? What inspired him to do this? What drove him to do this? Is he being directed, or is he in fact did he do it online by himself? So that's going to be the initial investigation into this individual.
So many unanswered questions still. Richard Frankel, appreciate all of your insight on this. Thank you so much. We will continue to bring you all of the developments in this breaking story. A lot more news after this quick break.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands. It's a serial killer case.
This killer, he's the Dahmer you've never heard of.
More and more men are going missing, and then the lead broke the case open. They discovered the farm.
The whole place was so bizarre.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
The largest number of unidentified human remains, second only to the World Trade Center.
Not many people live to tell about their involvement with the serial killer.
Everything we know about this case comes from you.
Absolutely. Let's not do that. Ooh, I'm sorry.
Never before a face-to-face interview with a camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. Only on Hulu.
Tuesday night.
This is What Would You Do, the holiday special.
During the holidays, there's pressure on single people. If you saw a woman being pressured to couple up, what would you do?
You're the only one that's not with somebody. You're kind of turning into a loser, to be honest. You have no right to be talking to your friend like that.
And what would you do if you saw a mom in need?
This one's declined.
Trying to buy a Christmas gift.
It's Christmas.
What would you do, the holiday edition?
Tuesday night on ABC.
There was the doctor, the loving husband, the incredible stepfather, and then there's this monster. There was a bombshell. Someone found a hidden camera in the bathroom. 3,000 videos, 1,400 photos. This betrayal was terrifying.
He wanted to kill my son. Once I tell the police what I have to say, he'll never get out.
Betrayal under his eye. Only on Hulu.
I'm just an actor. I don't know how to help people.
Now is his chance.
Help people connect to what's missing.
Well, they could just get a therapist.
It's not that easy here.
Japan is my home now. I want you to understand.
I hate you.
I'm messing with people's lives. I'm just trying to help.
Rental Family. Only in theaters. Rated PG-13.
Abby and Libby had gone on a walk, but we went to pick them up. They weren't there.
When the bodies were found, it felt different than any crime scene that I have ever seen.
She captured the image of her own murderer.
That Libby was able to get the video was very amazing.
There were dozens of viable suspects. Here's the rest of the story. Here's what they didn't tell you.
The person that did this is pure evil.
Capturing their killer. The Girls on the High Bridge. Only on Hulu.
Welcome back. Millions of Americans are on the move tonight. The roads expected to be jammed over the Thanksgiving holiday period. AAA is predicting a record 81 million travelers over the next couple of days, with the TSA set to screen nearly 18 million flyers at airports across the nation. Snowy conditions could snarl travel plans. Portions of the Midwest are expected to see a white Thanksgiving. Blizzard warnings are being issued from Wisconsin to Michigan, and a winter storm advisory is in effect for the Twin Cities. ABC News' Melissa Adon has more from Los Angeles International Airport.
From busy airports across the country to snowy roads in the Midwest and packed highways in California to New York's famous Grand Central Terminal, millions of people are on the move for the Thanksgiving holiday. Today is expected to be one of the busiest on the highways.
Last year we drove, and it can be kind of a hassle, so this year we decided to take the train.
Looks like you made the right choice.
Well, so far so good.
The federal security director at Los Angeles International Airport saying they screened 105,000 passengers Tuesday and expect more today, and credit smooth operations to staffing and a focus on safety.
It's just about patience, right? And screening one passenger, one bag at a time, and you know, making sure that we do our job so that people can get through here efficiently and not waiting a lot of time, but more importantly, securely.
Heavy snow slowing down some travelers in the Midwest. A pileup on Interstate 94 in Minnesota, police say due to the slick roads. Police also saying the strong winds made it difficult to clear the highway. But for the most part, travelers heading to the airport in Minneapolis saying they had no problems.
Nothing affected us. So we came in and it was totally uneventful.
Melissa Don, thanks so much. Let's turn now to the war in Ukraine. President Trump is defending his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, after a reported leaked phone call with the Kremlin's top foreign policy aide. Witkoff is set to meet face-to-face with Vladimir Putin in Moscow as soon as next week. Bloomberg's transcript of that phone call appears to show Witkoff coaching Russia on how Putin should present Russia's plan to end the war to President Trump. A Kremlin spokesperson calls the leaked conversations, quote, the usual work of a negotiator, while the White House says the story proves that Witkoff is working to achieve peace. Let's bring in Ivo Daldler for more. He is a former U.S. ambassador to NATO, currently a senior fellow at the Harvard Belfer Center. Ivo, what kind of impact do you think that this leaked transcript will have on these negotiations with Ukraine?
Well, it won't give people in Ukraine a lot of confidence about Steve Witkoff's ability to be a mediator, an honest broker, someone who can represent both sides equally, because this phone call, as we've long suspected, demonstrates in very clear terms that Steve Witkoff believes that Russia in some ways is in the right, even though Russia is the aggressor, and that the way in which the peace or a war will end in Ukraine is for the United States to side with Russia and pressure Ukraine. And indeed, time and again, since the beginning of the second term of President Trump, we've seen President Trump do that, to believe that it is Ukraine, who he famously said in the Oval Office back in February, doesn't have the cards, that Ukraine just needs to give in. Even last night, he said that the territory that said, we're trying to give the Russians want, and the plan calls for Ukraine to give up. That territory will be lost in a matter of weeks, or even less. Well, that territory has now been fought over for 11 years, and the Ukrainians haven't lost it yet. They're not about to lose it either. So there is a real issue here of whether the United States can be a mediator when its chief negotiator has sided with the Russians.
Does this kind of reaffirm this idea that this peace plan has sided with the Russians all along?
It does. I mean, in many ways, both this conversation and another leaked conversation that Bloomberg reported between the Russian foreign policy advisor of President Putin, Yuri Ushakov, and Kirill Dmitriev, who was the person who met with and talked to and probably presented major parts, if not all, of the 28